You're still a failure. Failure. I can smell the failure. Failure.
I saw Mufasa last week, and I'm genuinely shocked people aren't talking about how fundamentally awful this movie is. I went in having seen several reviews saying that it was just okay. It had some weak elements, but it was worth the watch. Having left the theater, I was having to ask myself if we even watched the same movie. Throughout the film, I was just in awe of how bad everything was. From the writing to the music to the characters, everything was done so horribly. Now, I've been done with Disney for a while. That's why I never wasted my time with something like Moana 2. I knew it was gonna be bad, so I never saw it. But whenever Disney goes and butchers some of my favorite franchises, that's when it becomes personal. So this is what my analysis will be: why everything in Mufasa fails.
Oh, I'm dead. Increasing the drama of the story.
By far and away, the biggest problem with this movie is the screenplay. No one's motives are fleshed out at all besides what's on the surface, and their priorities can change on the spot depending on when the script needs them to. What's worse is that due to this flaw, the movie inadvertently makes you start to hate some of the characters because their motives change on a whim and makes them come off as stupid. Like, in the very beginning, it shows us maybe 2 minutes of Mufasa as a cub with his parents before he's separated in a flood. He ends up miles away from home and runs into Taka, aka Scar. He takes him to his pride of lions, and the females raise Mufasa, and he's just okay with it. Then Taka, for no reason's like, yay, I've always wanted a brother, and then they go into a song about how they're now inseparable. Meanwhile, I was just sitting there in the theater like, why? 2 minutes ago, Mufasa got separated from his parents, who very well may still be alive, but he's like, oh geez, I guess this is my station in life now. Like, you're not even gonna try and find them? Now, to those who might have seen the film, you might be saying, but Michael, he's just a kid who went through a traumatic experience. He's just scared to go back. And to that, I call bull. While it was a traumatic event, there's no good reason given for him to believe his parents are dead, or at the very least not try and find his way back home. It would make more sense if it showed he searched for a long time and couldn't find them, and then ran into Taka, thus making it feel like he tried everything he could to find them before he gave up. But the film doesn't do that. Instead, he just floats down the river for however long he does, and then is like, I'm lost. No, you're not. Just get out of the river and go back the way you came, you dumb f***. There's no reason you can't find your parents. You're just choosing not to.
This doesn't make, logic. Where's the logic?
In the original Lion King, it makes sense for Simba to not want to go back to the Pride Lands, because not only does he feel responsible for his father's death, but he's also manipulated by Scar to believe this, and he tells him how his mother would hate him if she discovered this. Simba leaves because he doesn't want to face potential persecution on top of his trauma. If there's an argument for Mufasa not returning, it's because he's either 1, afraid of what he'll find, or 2, afraid that his parents don't want him because he failed to act accordingly when the flood happened. Even if those are potential cases, the film does not make it clear at all. We're having to guess the motives rather than be shown. So what we end up with makes him feel like an idiot rather than someone we're supposed to sympathize with. These relationships and motives are incredibly rushed, but what's worse is that situations like this are the entire movie. The king named Obasti constantly ridicules Mufasa for his entire life for not being part of the pride, but then when he saves his wife, he flips on a dime with his entire attitude like, I trust you now, Mufasa. We don't get to see any real change happen. Or when Mufasa and Taka run into Sarabi, they have like a minute-long conversation with each other, never speak with one another until Mufasa rescues her, and then when she finds out, she's like, wow, I'm in love with you. It's so frustrating because there are workable ideas here, but Disney gives zero time to flesh them out. Not only is the writing for their screenplays bad, but the music they now have also suffers the same fate. Which brings me to... The original Lion King is not only one of the greatest animated films ever made, but I would also argue one of the best musicals. Even with only 5 songs in the movie, every single one is a banger. Circle of Life, I Just Can't Wait to Be King, Be Prepared, Hakuna Matata, and Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Like I said, bangers. But do you know why these songs work as well as they do? Not only are the lyrics masterful at adding detail into the characters' wants and motivations, but also the environment plays such an integral role to the music. When they made the remake in 2019, the music was not properly utilized because they didn't understand what made it so good in the original. If you want a good video analyzing what I'm talking about, I recommend YMS's Lion King Part 1 review. It's hilarious and brilliant. The point I'm making is, while the music was ruined in that movie, at least it was still somewhat memorable because of those original tunes. They were just watered down. But the music in Mufasa, it might be competing with Wish with how bad they were. Okay, I might be joking. That's a little hyperbolic. While every single song in Wish was trash from its conception, Mufasa at least has some good ideas for their songs. They just failed to see them through. But what makes them fail? Well, it greatly depends on the song. It ranges from obnoxious melodies, terrible lyrics, and poor line delivery. What also doesn't help is the problem everyone has with these live-action Lion King movies. Since the CGI is so realistic for the animals and landscapes, there's no good way to enhance the music with the visuals present. Granted, they at least made their faces more expressive this time around, but since the environments and character designs are still so muted in browns and grays, it makes everything feel so dirty and lifeless. For example, with the song I Always Wanted a Brother, it shows how Mufasa is accepted into the new tribe, and Taka sings about how happy he is to have a new brother. Lyrically, the song actually has some good ideas. It shows how happy they are to have each other while also giving us insight into how Taka wants to rule with lines like this.
When I'm king, they will do as they're told.
But there's a certain line delivery right before the chorus that every time I hear it, I slowly die inside.
I always wanted a brother. I always wanted a brother. What did you say about my brother? That's not a trait, that's my brother.
I always wanted a brother. You stay away from my brother. Who thought this was a good idea? It just sounds icky. It's like, I get what they're trying to do, like play around with the line delivery, but I don't get the emotion it's trying to convey. In something like I Just Can't Wait to Be King, Simba plays around with the delivery of his lines, like here.
Brushing up on looking down, I'm working on my roar.
He says the line roar like he's roaring. Not only is it appropriate because he's actually acting out the word roar, but it also works as a way to showcase Simba's ego at the prospect of being king and his overall gleeful energy. They also do it with the character Zazu when he's irritated with Simba's behavior.
Never seen a king or beast with quite so little hair. It's time that you and I arranged a heart-to-heart.
It's these details in the vocal performances along with the music that makes this song so memorable. And this, when a lion makes a snarky remark at Mufasa, Taka's like,
I tell you, you said it again to my face. What did you say about my brother?
why does he say the line like this? It's like the song wants to make it catchy for the sake of it. He should be irritated or angered here, but he sounds no different than when he was celebrating having a new brother.
I always wanted a brother. I always wanted a brother. What did you say about my brother? That's not a trait, that's my brother.
This style doesn't add anything to the song except make it annoying. There's also the villain song that could possibly work, but the lyrics and visuals make it fail in the end. So this albino lion named Kiro, I think that's his name, played by Mads Mikkelsen, is set up as an ominous villain. Typically the roles associated with Mikkelsen when he's a villain character. But in this song, he breaks out into a catchy melody with fun wordplay.
I'm gonna be the last thing you see before you go bye-bye.
While this could work, the song's tone and lyrics don't match with the character we see throughout the rest of the movie. The reason something like Be Prepared is a masterpiece is because it plays with the already established traits of Scar. He's a character who views himself as smarter and better than everyone, and he's also kind of a drama queen.
Life's not fair, is it?
Yes. Well, forgive me for not leaping for joy. Bad back, you know.
Idiots! There will be a king!
The first moment we meet him, he's established as being the black sheep of the pride and melodramatic. So when his song reflects his personality, it works wonderfully. But when Kyros has the melody like this,
Before you go bye-bye. There you go Bye-bye.
It just comes across as strange. The visuals are also so bland in this scene. While there's not much footage available at the current moment of making this video, the song takes place in broad daylight. Like the rest of the movie, it's bathed in brown and gray. It's a threatening tune about how he's going to kill this pride of lions, but everything's so overly lit and thus tensionless. Another reason Be Prepared works is the various colors it plays with. It's bathed in shadows to showcase the villainous tone, but the colors it does choose to show have meaning to the scene. It starts out with the color green, showcasing Scar's greedy nature. Then whenever he gains the trust of the hyenas, it becomes bathed in yellow. It might seem positive because they now will have a food source, but there's still hints of green, showcasing Scar's true manipulative tactics over them. Then the scene eventually becomes bathed in red, showing Scar's true nature at the end of the day, which is that he is a being of pure evil and is doing what he does out of being angry and power hungry. I could go on for an hour about the brilliance of Be Prepared, but I think you get the idea. The tone is appropriate with the villain associated with the song, and it plays around with the visuals to convey multiple characteristics within the villain. In Mufasa, Kyros just breaks into a catchy tune with playful lyrics, and then they never showcase these personality traits with the character again. The other songs in the movie aren't really worth mentioning. It's the same problems as these two: boring to look at and boring to listen to. Now I want to talk about my biggest concern I had going into this movie, which is how they dealt with the character of Scar. Scar is not just a great villain, but he's a great character. While he could be seen as just two-dimensional because his motives are I just want power, the performance by Jeremy Irons and the action Scar takes to seize power is what makes him so iconic. As I mentioned before, he's melodramatic and has an inflated ego, but the moment he kills his brother and blames it on Simba makes him instantly one of the greatest villains ever written. We see the such cruel and evil lengths he's willing to go to achieve what he wants, making him not only memorable, but irredeemable in the eyes of the viewer. In Mufasa, it tries to show us how Scar became indifferent towards his brother, and I hate the idea of even shedding light on this topic. What makes Scar work is his pure evil. When you try to throw in elements to make him a misunderstood tragedy, it ruins the actions he takes in The Lion King. On top of that, Disney has made the bizarre creative change to make Scar and Mufasa not related. They've even gone so far as to clarify that even in the original movie, they are not brothers, even though this is a glaring contradiction of what's said by the characters.
Why, if it isn't my big brother? I'm afraid I'm at the shallow end of the gene pool.
When I'm king, what'll that make you?
A monkey's uncle.
Brother, help me!
But still, with this retcon, it not only ruins the canon of the original, but it also cheapens the moment when Scar kills Mufasa. Though the movie hints that Taka has some tyrannical tendencies, he is still the rightful king. He is the royal bloodline, and it is his right to rule. Mufasa also betrays him by mating with his potential queen, and I don't know about the African wild, but that's a bro code violation in all 50 states, buddy. The reason he's so effectively evil in the original is because we thought he was doing this to his own family, his own flesh and blood. But if you add the notion of them not being related and show how he was the rightful one to rule all along, you could make the argument he's now justified in what he's doing. There's been a trend for a while now in Hollywood to make everything morally ambiguous. While it works in some projects like Arcane, sometimes having someone be evil for the sake of being evil isn't a bad thing. Sometimes all a story needs is a power-hungry asshole as its villain. The original Lion King did this, and that movie is a masterpiece. With this added baggage, it ruins it. Now when I see this, I'm no longer sobbing uncontrollably. I'm more like, yeah, I kind of see where Scar's coming from. And I hate that. It goes to show this whole movie was such a bad idea from the start. I've seen a question sometimes floating around the internet for sequels and prequels, which is this: is this a story that needs to be told? I find this to be an irrelevant question. So many sequels and prequels don't need to be told, but are there and are amazing. But what makes them work isn't if they're a story that needed to be told. The real question for sequels and prequels should always be, does this story add on or take away from the original story? In Mufasa's case, I think it ends up taking away. You could go on about how the visuals are bland or how the music is generic, but when you try to recontextualize the conflict of the original movie for the sake of cheap moral ambiguity, don't be surprised when people rightfully call you out on this manipulative bullshit. Luckily, while the movie is making some money, it is underperforming well below the remake in 2019. Hopefully, with Mufasa and this abomination, we will soon see the end of these live-action Disney remakes.